Looks like you're traveling, Dave.
Yeah. Well, I'm actually just out running errands of sorts with my wife. So she went into the store and I'm sitting here in the car trying to get.
That's the most efficient and effective people make use of their time. And look at you, 15 minutes between errands and jump on a call for it.
Yeah, David, I'm so excited to have you together with us and to recap what we learned from this January.
Well, it's very fortunate that I taught my class in January, because later in the semester, the classes were canceled. And I'm trying to reschedule a new class for the winter, for January, February, or March, but I've insisted on only being willing to teach in person. I don't like teaching remotely, where I really can't connect with the students and engage with them. If you recall, our class was very engaging, very participatory. And doing something online, I think, would not give students the full experience, and I'd rather not give students a half experience.
Right, yeah. The energy level in the classroom cannot be replaced with this remote video conference for sure.
That's right. It's not like teaching. What I'm teaching is not like teaching accounting or finance. Those have right or wrong answers. That's different. You can teach that online. Teaching leadership is a different kind of story, I believe.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, I felt so lucky to be able to take your class in person, and we never know what would happen tomorrow, and who would know in 2 months we would all be shut down and locked out. But Dave, I was like, I really want to help scale what you learned, you taught, and help to take this opportunity and share with what we learned with a bigger group, so we make a bigger impact with organization leadership and leading organization change.
Yeah. That's very nice. Thank you.
Yeah. Daniel, are we ready to get started?
Yes, absolutely. So I think this is a great, since David didn't have a whole lot of time, so I just want to introduce David. Janet, can you introduce David to the whole group? And then, so let's get that over, let's do that first, and we can talk about the lecture afterwards. I know David's really, his time is extremely precious. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Yeah. So, hey, all of you who is here, I see about 30 participants. Thank you for joining us today. And to our honor, we actually have David Potrick with us. He is actually the author of 2 of the books that we're going to cover today, and also a professor earlier this year when we're taking Leading Disruptive Change. Dave is a former CEO and president of Charles Schwab. He's currently retired. You're still working, I know. And thank you so much for joining. And I don't know, Dave, would you want to give us the script, say a few words as a guidance for them for this year?
Well, if our topic today is about leading breakthrough change, then I would simply remind everyone that leading change is very, very hard. It's going to be harder than you imagine it to be, because people don't like change. They hate change. It's not that they hate what it is you're trying to do. It's disruptive, it's uncomfortable, it's frightening. So to get people to change takes an extraordinary form of leadership, where you have to connect with people. You have to share with them the purpose. You have to figure out how to get some of the people to work with you, so that you can reduce the resistance, so that you can get people to believe, to build momentum and the perception of momentum. We covered that over and over in my class, the importance of having people believe that this is going to happen. It's going to be successful. Your choice is to get on board or get run over. You have to get on board. And the way that you do that is by having measurements, by having indicators, by tracking, and those things give you the perception and the reality of a momentum that builds. And that as you build momentum, people come on board. If people perceive the project is failing, they back away. They don't get on board. You lose key employees that go to work somewhere else because they don't want to be associated with something that's going to fail. So building that perception that is not just the reality, but also the belief is incredibly important, is not easy to do, and it relies on a leader who can communicate, can connect with people, and have people believe in that leader and believe in the direction that we're going, and have that build over time. So I think that is kind of what I tried to teach you all when you took my class last year.
Thank you. You summarized our slides in 3 minutes. Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have any other things to add, but I know Daniel also have a time crunch to get the program within 90 minutes. So Daniel, you have any questions for Dave at this time?
I think if there's one, we appreciate David for giving us great advice. And then, we'd love to have you longer if you can stay, but if not, totally understand. Just any last, maybe kind of like additional advice you can give to the team who are generally, the audience here are Chinese Americans, coming from different culture. So any sort of advice for addressing that maybe culture difference, that drive changes, to help people to prepare to lead those changes.
Yeah, obviously the Asian cultures are much more reserved. People are more poised. They're more they're less energetically communicators, more cautious communicators. And what I would simply say is that you have to do the best you can within your cultural limitations to have people understand that you are truly committed. The way to do this is not with numbers, it's not with statistics, it's with stories that you tell that demonstrate your belief, that demonstrate your commitment. You tell stories of engaging with customers, changing the lives of customers, employees that saw the benefit of where you're going and what you're trying to communicate. We tend to want to sell things based upon statistics and numbers, but that doesn't connect with people emotionally. And the thing about change, about disruptive change, it's about emotions. It's about fear. It's about overcoming fear and discomfort. And it's about building commitment and energy and belief. And I do know that in the Chinese or more broadly Asian cultures, communication is different, but still storytelling is the way to get people to believe more passionately in what it is you're trying to do. And I think with that, I'm going to jump off, but thank you for giving me the opportunity to spend a little time with you this afternoon. I wish you all the best.
Thank you so much, David.
Okay, take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Wow, that's what a surprise.
Surprise guest.
Yeah, so I think we
call it like a webinar crasher?
Yeah, webinar crasher. Very, very appreciative of David Pottruck, the ex-CEO and also the ex-president of Charles Schwab, for coming here, and also the author of the books we're going to be presenting for today. So this is he's also the Wharton professor on 2 classes that he taught last year, and then Janet and Jing are both students of that class. I didn't take the class, but I'm here also to learn too. But what a great surprise! And so I think now maybe it's a good time for us to kick off this session. So maybe the video is no longer really appropriate. I feel like we're in the serious talk now. I'm going to stop playing the CYPN introduction video and then kind of switch over to the organization very quickly. So give me 1 minute. Let me switch over the slides. Okay, so make sure you guys can see my screen. I think you guys can, right? Okay, perfect. So just a little quick discussion on who we are. So we are a nonprofit organization, previously founded in Boston, Massachusetts, but here it's really nationwide. We founded back in 10 years ago, 501c3 nonprofit with 14,000 members across 2 coasts. And we're also one of the largest young professional group for Chinese Americans and Chinese in the United States. So a lot of different events, as you saw, we have different industry seminars and career development. And this is more of a career development series, right? On influence, leadership, driving changes. In the past, we've also done analytics, IT, engineering / finance, accounting, and also the consulting and MBA recruiting type of events in the past. And then of course we have outdoor events. If you happen to be in Boston or Los Angeles, we have ski trips, surfing classes. We also do have a competitive Dragon Ball racing club, mostly hosted in Boston, but we also travel and also compete nationwide, also internationally as well. And also we have online Zoom classes for fitness, and we have the ballroom dancing and dance battle as well. And then here are some of the pictures and events and QR codes. Feel free to scan if you have a WeChat right in front of you. But we have some additional information here if you guys want to take a screenshot and join our group through different means. We also do have a page here, basically just COVID-19 donations. We like to bring those donations to the people who are on the front line fighting the virus, helping us, keeping us safe. So here, optionally, here's a Venmo account in case you guys want to donate. And we have that dedicated person to consolidate these payments and then send over to the foundation of our choice. All right, so without much additional delay, so let's get through the introduction slides here. The CYPN, this is seminar number 50. So we've been doing this for over 6 years on the organizations, organization of the of online events, offline events, mostly at MIT if it's physical events, and online events it's every different places, right? So all over the world. And then thank you guys for dialing in. And today's topic is leading organizational change. And we have 2 speakers. We have Jing and Janet. So Jing is the senior manager from Schlumberger, also a graduate of the Wharton School this year. So is Janet, principal at ENGO, and also the graduate of Wharton this year as well. Both of them are my classmates from the past year. So without further delay, so let's switch over the slides. So maybe Jane, you can take over and maybe do a little introduction for you too as well.
Sure. Yeah, let me share my slides. Can you see my shared screen with no problem?
Yes, we can see it.
Okay. Okay. Excellent. Excellent. Daniel, thank you for inviting me to be the guest speaker. It's my honor to be able to share the course I learned this January. It is part of the 3-day global modular course taught by David Portrak, who is our surprise guest speaker at the very beginning. And the course covers 4 books. The first 2 books was written by David. They are Stacking the Deck and Driving Disruptions. So Stacking the Deck is talking about how to use a 9-step process to establish their unfair advantage against the others. And then the second book, Driving Disruption, is more talking about how to make those disruptive changes happen. Right? And the third book is from the Terry Pierce, who is the very well-known executive coach. He is also a coach. He was also coaching David when he was the CEO of Charles Schwab. And in addition to that, there's another book, which is the 5 dysfunctions of the team. That is talking about how team can malfunction, what are the essence to build a full, efficient, and functional team. And also, interestingly, that book gives a questionnaire can help you to run a little bit clinic about your own team. So let me move forward by the main content taught in the classes. First was about how to manage by horizons. And those horizons are defined by their different time and profitabilities. And for the horizon one is other incremental innovations and focus on the superior execution on day-to-day basis. I think a lot of you and me, we have done a lot of horizon one incremental changes in our own team or in our own organization. And if we move along the ladder, the next change is about horizon two, which is to introduce more significant changes to the organization. And the focus of this horizon two was not about execution on day-to-day. Instead, is to building the capacity and competency of your team and to establish advantage in the more midterm. And also, because it's focused on the growing, so it will scale the proven business models and to grow either your organization, your team size, or increase market share of your existing business. Okay. And if we move along the ladder, the next level of the change, which was called bold change by David, that is about horizon three. That is that level of change would reinvent the company or industry. It will fundamentally shift their business model. And because it drew into the unknown area, it would have quite a lot of failures and gain insight over the longer term. I think there's a few, I would say, horizon three changes you and I are aware of. For example, in China, when Alipay introduced the Yuer Pay, right? That is kind of horizon three changes, fundamental change, how the money market fund work in China. Another thing I want to refer as a horizon three was like last year, the brokers, including Charles Schwab, they waive all the transaction fee, basically zero transaction fee now become the new standard for the brokers because they are shifting the business model from earn the profit from their transaction fee to more working like a bank, got majority of the earning from the saving, the money that is in their customers' account. So by understanding those different horizons of the changes, it's really important to understand that is to lead in such a bold changes or different horizon of changes. It is not like a general or captain leading army to make things happen. Right? This I refer to Howard, the CEO of Starbucks quote. And it need to not only need to reach God consensus from the whole team, but also the people need to believe in the idea and buy in idea and are willing to follow the direction. Right? It's like a hills because it has up and down. And we need to be emotionally ready for that. And regarding to leading the organizational change, I think there are three overarching considerations I want to elaborate here. First one is about the people. The leader who is leading the organizational change need to be the magnet for talents. The smart, commitment, and hardworking, they are important, but they are not enough. They are good starting point, but to make those bold changes happen, we need to have a very diversified team to cover all the required skills and need to absorb the talents from the different channels. So constant recruiting is really, really essential. And the second pillar is about communication. It's not a one-way communication, it's two-way, right? We can never be over-communicate about what we are trying to achieve. And the listening is incredibly important. because while we are leading bold changes, there would be resistance from the different channels, from within the team or from outside the team. And we need to keep our ears open and to listen to all the unfiltered information from all the possible channels. The third pillar was to be emotionally ready, and emotionally ready for the rough journey ahead of us. Because overall, the changes are not going to be linear. It would have up and down, and incumbent would push back, and we need to, be prepared for that, and just don't be frustrated about the hiccups that will come at the beginning. And then I want to drill a little bit more into the leadership communication itself. In the early in my career, I used to think to sell a change equals to sending an email with an explanation of the compelling facts and the reasons, right? All the analytics, I'm so good at that. But that is really is a starting point, right? To sell the change essentially is to how to connect with people emotionally. I think that is the main message David was elaborating at the beginning of the talk as well. Because essentially we are working with people, not just with numbers, right? Numbers are important to gauge us, to kind of calibrate our intuition, but we need to understand, more importantly, we need to understand the different perspectives from the different people, because everyone comes from very different foundations. And another thing I want to emphasize is the difference between the motivate and inspire. Because motivate is more, the force is more come from outside. And its outside goal kind of motivate us to push us pull us more towards that goal, right? And sometimes people are motivated because they expect to get certain rewards afterwards. But on the contrast, inspiration is more about internal drive within ourselves, right? Is a vision that inspire the people, will attract the people from inside to move towards that direction. So with that said, I want to use this quote is from the Maya. So people, a lot of time, because a lot of us have an engineering background, we put a lot of focus about the detail, the precise, like what I want to say or what I'm doing, right? But often we may not pay enough attention about how we make people feel. So I will transit to Janet, who will talk more about how you can make people feel and got connected with the people. Janet.
Yes, thank you, Jing. And it's great to have all of you here. And I'll start with inspirational communication. Like Jing and also Dave mentioned, to be inspirational, you need to be able to connect with people in the heart. Your team really needs to feel and believe that you understand their challenges and their fear. Otherwise, what you tell them, the numbers, the statistic makes no sense to them. They don't understand it. So recently, I've been listening to the presidential debate. A lot of you might have been doing the same. And I was quite impressed with Kamala Harris' recent debate. And one thing she said, and I'm going to just read it, hopefully you can understand what an inspirational communication means. And on the topic of COVID handling, what she said is, how calm were you when you were wondering where you were going to get your next roll of toilet paper? How calm were you when your kids were sent home from school? How calm were you when your children can't see your parents because they fear of killing them? You respect American people when you tell them the truth. So Again, she's tying everyday fear and challenge with sending the message. And these are some of the things you need to think about when you're creating a message to your team to drive a change. Next slide. Not moving. Awesome. So Gallup performed a poll back in 1995. Feels like a long time ago, but I think this still applies to everyday life you and I lived in. The question they asked the audience is, how inspiring do you think leadership is with their communication? When executives and leaders fill out the survey, they rank themselves being very effective with communicating and being inspirational. On the other hand, followers and most employees felt very differently. And I think all of us have been in those meetings before where we just don't connect with leadership. But keep in mind, we will one day become leaders and we will be on the other side of the equation. So remember all the communication moments and why leaders cannot connect with you. And when you become the leaders and the executive, take those moments and connect with people and roll those fears and concerns into your message. Next slide. And that takes us to Leading Out Loud, is one of the books that we have to read for our class. I would say it's a very practical book. It's full of stories, just like how Dave said, but it also outlines a few key things on how you can connect with people to their heart. So two things we need to remember. People think with two mechanisms in the body, the mind and their heart. The mind looks for evidence, they look for all the facts, they look for a purpose, and they look for what they can believe in. Their heart looks for passion, look for faith, look for meaning, and look for trust. Many of us communicate with numbers and statistics, and that only connects the mind. We need to expand our message to also connect with the heart. So over here on the slide, there's 4 big items that help you connect the mind and the heart together. Share the vision. So we declare what the future looks like. That's the vision. But it's also important to share what the progress could look like and feel like. There could be a lot of obstacles and hurdles that we need to go through. Lots of rocks thrown at us, but we believe in the future. It's worthwhile for us to pursue this. The message needs to connect with the purpose and also the heart with the meaning. Building trust. You cannot lead a team without trust. But to build trust, you need to be good at what you're doing. You need to establish you need to be competent in the item or the project that you're leading. Otherwise, it's hard to build trust. But as you're building trust, apply empathy. Understand what people are fearful for. Understand what they're concerned about. And then you can apply what you hear from them, tweak your ideas, and continue. And it's also very important to do what you say. The easiest way to lose trust is say a lot of things, commit to a lot of things, and never do them. The building trust helps the mind with belief part. I can believe in you. And also the heart is like, I can trust you. You know how to do this, and you won't let me down the cliff. Next part, create shared content. Communicating history. How did we get to this point? Why do we need this change? Share the priorities and current realities. It's important for the team to understand the urgency of the change, and that if we don't make this change, what are the consequences? And through the shared content, you can also hear what people suggest to, say, lead the course, or you can find out who could be potential group that would oppose your ideas. You don't wait till the end. You engage them and hear what they want to say. That way you remove those barriers and also reduce the number of people that would potentially be in your way and not follow the change. Creating shared content allows the mind to see the evidence and the facts, and the heart to build faith and trust. commit to action. So you need to show the passion. If you believe in the change, you are the person leading it, you're acting, you're there at every event. You share accountability. You don't just shift the accountability and responsibility to your team. You carry part of that accountability. When there's failure or success, share them, celebrate them. Every failure leads us closer to the success. So it needs to carry that momentum and help the team see what success looks like. And this is the part that Dave mentioned in the beginning of our meeting. And again, committing to action connects the mind with the evidence, the facts and belief, and the heart with passion and trust. Next slide. So after that, you should have a pretty good team that believes in your idea. The next challenge is, how do you make sure your team of people can work effectively together and be functional? Change is not something one person can lead alone. You need an army of people that believes in the idea, and the army needs to function well. So the practice function of a team, again, a very easy read, is through a story to show how you can eliminate barriers to a functional team. And every functional team built on the foundation of trust. To build trust, you need to have open, honest communication. There shouldn't be any team members who feel, if I make the comment, then I will be retaliated against. If I make a mistake, I'll be judged. You need to remove those barriers and build a trust, that psychological safety for the team to be healthy. Once you get to that part, the team will be engaging in what we call constructive conflict and debate. So there will be confrontation between the teams, but they're all very respectful and they're direct to a specific goal. So the team, through those clear, transparent communication, they will be able to work through the problem, work through the idea, and come up with an implementable process and implementable and effective process. Now with that, then you can move up the triangle and apply accountability. Now people will now commitment. People come to your meeting to talk about this project. Don't just show up because they're invited to a meeting. They show up because they're prepared to contribute. They show up to share their thoughts. At the end of the meeting, they're willing to take a fair share of action items, and that shows commitment. With the fair share of action items, then you can hold everybody accountable. There's clear metrics to show how success looks like and how we're tracking across success. And the very last point of this triangle is results. As a leader, it's important to lead a team with your goal in mind. When teams work together, there's a lot of obstacles. It's easy to fall off the track. So as a leader, this is time for you to keep the team focused on the prize. What is your ultimate goal? And direct them to the right result. That's pretty much it for 5 dysfunction of the team. And the next slide is a summary slide to put all the things that I just talked together into 5 points. I'm not going to go through them, but you'll have the slides later to kind of refer back. And at this time, I'll just stop talking for a bit and let Jing tell a story about stacking the deck.
Thank you, Janet. So stacking the deck is a 9-step process that would establish the unfair advantage, against the others. So here I want to share my own story to lead Horizon 2 changes when I was the line manager in the Beijing Technology Center. So for our center in Beijing, it was in very sweet spot initially, mainly because first of all, the cost was low. It's like almost half of the cost in US. Secondly, the ease of access to the talent pool in all the universities in Beijing. But however, one company decided to set up a software center in India, and all those advantages were gone. So we got a sense of urgency to change the center from the follower or a low-cost software center to be a leader in the digital technology organization. So to do that, we built assembling a leadership team that was consisted of center manager, line managers, representative project managers, and a software engineer. So essentially, the core leadership team represent all the different roles in the center, and we work together to build a vision of the future position of the center. That is, we want to build very sustainable innovation environment for the center. Right? We want to be the leader in the digital organization. So it's good. This is very inspiring for everyone in the center, but on the other hand, it's quite vague as well. So we broke down with that picture in our mind. We identify, first of all, we identified a certain barrier to achieve that. And one of the barriers we are facing was a lack of the authority, who are really believe in the center and want to support us to engage our portfolio transformation from the incremental feature to more strategic projects. So to address that, we approached quite a few credible technical leaders in the company and convinced a few to transfer to Beijing and become part of the center. And that really play a very important role in the future when we do the communication with executive team and and increase influence in the technical community as well. Because under Rose's leadership, the technical leadership, it help the young generation to grow and become take the leadership role in their different technical community within the company. And another thing I want to mention was, to make this vision happen, it was divided into a lot of initiatives, and all those initiatives were driven by the different leaders in the leadership team, and the Rose initiative is penetrated on the day-to-day work. And when we gain the early win, we celebrate it and to build a momentum. And everyone was cheerful, about all those early success, and then we just carry it forward. So with all the effort put into place, several years down the road, the Beijing Technology Center right now has become the epicenter of the new generation corporate SaaS platform. And when I look back about what we have done, what we did years ago, I feel probably we can do better in the bullet 6 and 7, because initially we're so passionate about that project, but ends up we started like dozens of initiatives altogether. It was a little bit exhausting upfront. So ends up a few initiatives actually was fading as it go. But there's quite a few prospered and the momentum and become a part of the habits of the center. Another thing I felt the metrics, including both leading and lagging indicators, are super important, because when we lead the changes, there are some initiatives would have a short-term loss or the short-term pain that need to go through. And we really need those leading indicators to to earn us the confidence as we go, right? So we can kind of test the water whether we are heading to the right direction. Okay, that's all the story I want to share with you. I will translate back to Janet.
Great story, thank you. And it's a great experience, Jing, to share.
Sure.
So I do also want to share, creating an environment for continuous change, because change is the only constant, and the only thing that is constant. Change will be around you all the time. So it's important to make sure your team is prepared for change. And recently, COVID bring a big shock to my company. I work in the construction industry, and my team consists of few construction workers and also office engineers. Not all the tasks could be done from home, but we were classified as essential workers at the beginning of the pandemic, just like healthcare workers, delivery unit, and grocery store workers. So there's a lot of uncertainty and just fear in the beginning of the pandemic on how can we navigate through this changing environment. So what we did is we actually, instead of weekly meetings with our staff, we created daily meetings with our staff. And we focus on asking them several questions. Question is, did we share a clear plan with you for action for this week? Or do you know what we need to do this week? And then, do you think you're well prepared for all the work that we have shared with you this week? And is there anything that you would like us to consider for next week? And then the last question is their own well-being. How's your family? How are you feeling? How are you handling stress? Are there any challenges with just everyday life? That helps us connect emotionally with our staff. And what we found is the biggest fear is getting sick themselves or passing the virus to the loved ones in the family. And the second set of fears is losing their job. There's not enough work in the next month, and people are worried that they will lose their job. Another part is for the office worker, they just don't know how to be productive now that they're not in an office and collaborating with each other. And the last but not least is from leadership. We don't know how long this is going to take. Is this a 2-month change, or is this forever? So it's interesting as we're navigating through change environment, it's not just the frontline employees, it's also leadership. All of us are feeling fear and uncertainty around change. So it requires leaders, could be anyone within the company, but leaders to really think about, how to lead your frontline employees and also how to lead up. Through asking those questions, we were able to develop implementable expectations for the week, and we take it 1 week at a time. We communicate with our staff that based on the statistics and the facts, this is why we're making this decision. And it's not just statistics and facts. We also gather opinions from the group. We share how we arrived at the conclusion. And our staff and team feel more stable. And they are actually able to start looking beyond fear. They move out of the fear zone and they start offering help. Some staff offer help from their spouse to make cloth masks for the company. They use Clorox bleach solution that they have from home, diluted for cleaning the office. We also have a group to give back to the community. So very positive outcomes through the change. All these change that I've just talked about and Jing shared is predominantly Horizon 2 change, and you can see it's very difficult already. So one thing I do want to kind of speak to, and it's on the next slide, is about Horizon 3 change. I personally don't need to go through a Horizon 3 change as my company yet, but this is something that is very challenging and risky. If you have to lead any kind of Horizon 3 change, these are the disruptive, innovative change, you need to be aware of the chasm. A lot of times, just going through getting innovators and early adopters to believe in your idea and solution is hard enough. but it's not enough to get your ideas and solutions to the next level, to get the majority of the company or your customers to engage in the solution or product. The chasm is where it indicates the difference between early adopters and early majority. The biggest difference is early majority needs everything to work. They don't change their behaviors for the solution. They want the solutions to be practical and a plug and play. So any change that you want to make to cross the chasm needs to be seamless. It needs to be easy to understand and that they can just implement right away. Something to consider if you ever need to lead this challenging Horizon 3 change. And their last slide is just a big summary slide. Leading change is difficult. It does require leadership at every single step. You need to have a group of people that believe in the idea to go through this journey with you. So if you're not up for leadership, yeah, you might not be up for any bold changes. And that's all we have. We have one last slide to summarize 12 amazing ideas for you to take away. We don't have time to go through all of them, but you can get them after this meeting. And I'll hand us this time, I'll give the time back to Daniel. Are we right on time? Looks like we are.
Perfect. Thank you so much. We can actually leave the slides on, so you guys don't need to change anything. I do have a couple questions. I think I consolidated from the all the attendees when you sign up through Eventbrite. I asked you a question about one thing you want to take away. So did little organizations try to bring them into groups. So there's only not a whole lot of questions. So I like to get through these and then open up some time for the audience to ask questions too. So let me ask kind of the bundle questions first, and then we'll get to the free to public. Everyone can just come up to the mic and ask questions at the very end. So first of all, when it comes to preparations, so there's a lot of times, oftentimes you want to make the change and you're preparing to make the change, and then how does those preparation usually go? So one question that really comes up, I think you already addressed, why should we make the change, right? I think you mentioned that if we don't make the change, you either get swiped out by I guess the momentum, but the trends, whatever, or if you take the lead and make the change, and that's where you stand out and then win out at the end. So why do we think that we are eligible? Why should we take the lead in managing organizational change? Am I the right person to push for the change, even if my title says otherwise? Right? That's very common questions, especially if you don't have the managerial title, or even a manager. There are pay grades way above you that usually make those decisions. So why am I the person? I guess it's I don't know, Jing, you want to address that?
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can share my perspective. I think Janet, Daniel, you can, feel free to add. So why me? I think as we go through the slide deck, all those organization changes really engage more than just the leader, right? Or the one with a legitimate title. It really requires everyone to embrace the change and become, I would say, the change agent. So it's really, really important to be part of the change and to take initiative to drive it through. Because when we talk about change, we are talking about sustainable changes, right? We are not talking about just one-time deal, one-time event. We are more talking about how to bring these changes forward and make it penetrate through our everyday to-day life. So normally for the organization, when you introduce such a bold change, is a strategic shift of the new direction. I think being part of direction is kind of important for everyone, if we want to develop the career progression along that path. Because a lot of, Horizon 2 or Horizon 3 changes, it kind of show the direction, the future direction the company want to move towards. So being part of the wave is truly critical for every working professional.
Very great. Okay, so I think there's only one thing maybe I want to tag on along that. I mean, like I mentioned earlier, the Horizon 1 is incremental, small changes, just maintain the business. It's hard to stand out in that fashion, right? So for Chinese and Chinese Americans, we are very, very strong technically. We are we can do our job very well as individual contributors. But what really prohibits us from standing out is be able to drive the change, be able to motivate, be able to,
Exactly.
grasp the opportunity. When you see there's a deficiency, let's push for change that, get the outcome to be altered, right? And during that process, we will have an opportunity to ascend to the top. We will be able to get the visibilities. So this is, I think the rare chances that you don't see all the time, because most of people are not, first of all, there might not be a need for change, right? If you're working, say, in the steel industry back in the 1900s, everything stays constant. There's no, productivity is measured by how, the incremental gains you can get out of the additional tons of steel you can get out of it, from the same technology. So, but now it's different. So I think this really, give us the opportunity to stand out and then to win it out on the top.
Right, exactly. I want to add on is also associated with our personal brand, right? Because for us, it's about our comfort zone as well. Because Horizon 1 probably is what we're comfortable to deal with day to day. But to lead in Horizon 2 or even 3, that require to break through a lot of incumbent or established process, right? Which is much harder. I think be able to be part of it is where truly make us stand out. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would say with the pay scale and why me question, a lot of times don't assume leadership see the same challenge as you. Leadership is at a 10,000 level, where most of us in the front line see things, interact with customer directly. We actually see their pain points. You have actually the biggest strength to lead the right change that would have the biggest impact to the bottom line to your company. But being the person just complaining with your peers saying, I can't believe they don't see this, reflects actually badly on your professionalism. Be the person that stand up and say, these are the things that we see. And we can actually help our company make 20% more margin by changing this little thing. Leadership actually view those behaviors to be extremely positive, and it do wonders to a career if you're able to step up and make those leadership comments.
Very, very good point. Thank you so much, Janet and Jing. The next question is, so now that you are determined to make this change, you decided that the person is you, that you want to push forward on the agenda. So how do you recognize who are the resistance within the organizations, and then recognize who they are as people and who they are as group, as incumbents?
Okay, yeah, that's a good question. So as what I mentioned in the stacking the deck, right? I think the first step, if say we become part of leadership to drive the change, is really important for the leadership team is consisted of a diversified background. Because by doing that, that kind of gives us, how to say, we can anticipate what may come out of, what kind of resistance we may have when we drive through the changes. So that's the first thing. We should be able to learn from diversified background of the leadership team. And also another thing is the listening, right? And that is really very important to be able to communicate with the people, to listen to the, I would say, unfiltered information. Because a lot of time if we follow the line of the reports, and a lot of information just got filtered out, right? Depends on the culture of their company. Sometimes people maybe only carry the good words to the manager. But when we drive through the changes, we need to be able to connect the people with all the levels and to understand the concern. And all those would prepare us to address those resistance as part of the action plan.
And I would say, when you first started with a change, you do need to identify people that could be impacted by the change, because anybody that could be impacted will potentially be resisting the change. That's one thing. Is your change impacting the financial department, the HR department, and also the manufacturing department? If it would be, you better engage those people early on. And when you engage them, it's not like, hey, I'm thinking about this change. What do you think? The communication should be different. You should be saying, something like, hey, I have been like noticing this thing. I want to get your thoughts on, how we can improve. But I've been feeling this resistance when I use this tool. I just don't know how to solve it. I need your help. I need your help is a wonderful phrase to use when you're facing resistance, because you don't come to them with an agenda. You don't come to them with the change. You come to them and ask for help. People want to provide input, and once they have the ability to provide input, it opens the dialogue of communication. It doesn't really matter at the end of the day whether the decision is what is being picked or the idea, but if they're engaged in the process, they will have buy-in, and you will get more support through this open, transparent communication than just showing up with a solution. Just a few cents I want to chime in on that question.
Thank you so much for actually addressing this question very well about facing resistance. And now that, let's say you now have an idea, right? You know who the resistance are, but before you encounter resistance, you want to pitch your idea to the upper management, to your boss, to the executive leadership team, to get your voice heard and also garner support. Now, how do you want to do that? And also, how do you do that with the peers and also the cross-function team as well? We're convincing them the change is necessary.
Yes, so as we have gone through one of the slides mentioned, everyone has their own different perspectives, and communication with different stakeholders would be different depending on where are they coming from, right? For the executives, probably they are more interested to know whether these changes help to improve, say, the margin or pull through the revenue or market share, right? There are certain financial numbers they are truly interested in, or like sustainability of the overall business. So when we communicate with them, we have to translate the changes or connect the changes with that. And then for the peers, and depends on what kind of position they are holding or where are they coming from. So we can use very different approach to get connected with them and to see how these changes may impact, or maybe impact them in a way that we can have some certain shared value together, right? Because to introduce the changes, to bring people on board is really the most important thing. And about communication to the team member, and we need to really have the empathy to understand how those changes could impact the day-to-day horizon one thing, because sometimes the horizon two more midterm changes will take extra time from the people, and we need to really keep the ear open to understand how their life is going to change, and to be resilient to adjust our proposal, what kind of change need to be introduced. So yeah, for me, this really depends on who are the audience and who we are working with. We need to be very flexible and to kind of keep refine our changing plan or action plan as we lead those changes in the organization.
Yeah, I would agree with everything that Jin said. And I mean, the only thing I would add is, to communicate with leadership, sometimes you have very little time. They allocate very little time to you. So I would quickly just focus on, what the pain is, what is the problem, what is the outcome if we don't solve the problem, what is the downside. And for that, this is the reason why we would like to explore the potential ways to create change, to change this problem and fix this issue. Sometimes all those things is all you need to tell your leaders to get buy-in. They don't really need to know the details on how you get there. If you can build trust with your boss and your leaders, they have trust in you that you can implement it. But really important, hit those 3 points. What is the pain point? What happens if we don't do the change or we don't change? And why we should commit it to those change 3 things.
Awesome. yeah, I think that wraps up the preparation phase. Now let's move on to the next section, which is about the leading the change itself, right? So you have the green light, you got the direction set. Now, how do you motivate the team and keep them passionate about the change? Because most people are, kind of comfortable at horizon one, right? So when you communicate, hey, let's do this. How do you motivate the team to say, hey, yes, let's all do this together? Or how to avoid, make it sound like, oh, just another thing that someone just decided to do something on, on some random days, and then let's all do that just because it makes their resume look better, right? So how do you kind of overcome that challenge and make sure you have the full buy-in from your own team?
Okay, I can put my 2 cents and then I will leave Jenny to elaborate more. So for me, the buy-in from team could come from 2 perspectives. One is about the overall sense of urgency. Right? Sometimes, yes, we can keep doing day-to-day, but we can see that the day-to-day opportunity is shrinking. So people, when they feel there's urgency to do so, and they be more embracing the changes, right? Like what Jenny talked about, the customer problem, if we keep doing the same thing day by day, actually the customer keeps complaining. And we have to tackle that in a more structured way, right? We have to see how to improve, solve the pain point in a more longer term. So secondly was, when we engage changes, we need to elaborate, what in it for me, basically, what kind of value it could bring to our team members, right? Then just as you say, it could be the one like, okay, by embracing these changes, it will give, say, software engineer exposed to the more latest technology, so they can become more competitive in the market. I think that could be the one good reason to do that, right? Also, it depends on the motivation of the team member. They could be motivated from the multiple perspective, and some team member maybe is so eager, aspirational to be a technical leader in the company. So all those leading those changes would earn them visibility, which is cannot be earned day by day, right? So it's overall, I think it's really very personal. Depends on who we're working with and what will motivate them, what will inspire them to do so.
Yeah, and I think keeping the momentum is always very difficult. Everybody is very passionate in the beginning, and what takes that passion away is failure, right? And these are difficult change, and you will see a lot of hurdles. So communicating that what the process would feel like is important. Remind the team this is part of the process. We still believe in the core idea. We still believe in the mission and why we're doing this helps. And I think, being a person, like a talent magnet is very important. You need to continue to feed the team with new blood. The new blood brings passionate, and enthusiasm, and the new blood also brings new ideas and new insights. And that is also a good way to keep the momentum. And lastly, I would say, force yourself to report failure and success. No, don't only focus on the wins, focus on failure and success. It's part of the process. And it also shows that you recognize what doesn't work and you're making changes so that you will be more successful moving forward. Because if you don't talk about failure, it doesn't mean that your team doesn't see it. They see it and they feel it. But talking it out loud and say, hey, I realize that just doesn't work. How can we make it better? Because this is important for the company, important for us. That has worked much better. And Jim, you and I lead a lot of changes that fail, group just dismiss, and we're like, oh, what happened? And throughout the process, we realized keeping that momentum very important. But it's not just sharing the good news only. It's the good news and the bad.
Yeah, exactly. Jenny, I just want to add on is the concept of a noble failure, right? So yes, we need to openly discuss a failure. Of course, we need to be consciously select, for what kind of failure we can, because if we have too many or fail really horribly, that definitely would impact overall morale, right? So I think for the failure, we are we need to be carefully chose when we take the bold changes. We need to, I would say, contain it in a certain environment. So and emphasize the learning out of it rather than the outcome out of it, right? So the most important is we learn from all those failures and pave the road for the success. Again, everyone wants to embark on the success, and build a perception of success is truly critical for their organization.
Yeah, and we didn't really talk about the pilots. How to break your change into bite-size change.
Yes.
That's another way to ensure momentum. You test little things. You test, instead of implementing change throughout the whole organization, implement a change to one little group, 3-person group first. And if it fails, you fail small. And you talk about the failure, engage a bigger group. That's another way to keep momentum. Yeah.
Okay, that actually kind of answers my next question, is what should I do when facing resistance from employees and teams that do not embrace changes? But I really like your, I guess we're heading, pilots and small wins, or I guess early wins, right? So it's just to make sure people sees that, hey, this change is worth it. This is something that it's, it can basically a showcase for those who have doubts that this can work. And then through time, through those data points, so those anecdotal examples, people have buy-ins. So I really do like that. Any additional thing to add in addition to just the early wins and then pilots that can help alleviate some of this resistance from employees?
Yeah, I think you will have resistance regardless, and it's important that adoption curve is no different than getting buy-in. You need to get the major majority of the company to believe in your idea, and then the next majority will follow. There will be laggers. There will be. There's still people in this world that doesn't use microwave and don't have a cell phone. You can't get 100% buy-in most of the time. It would be great if you can, but most of the time you cannot. So just keep that in mind. It's not a sign of failure if there are people just never get on board. But you need to have enough people to follow you and believe in the idea for it to be successful.
Yeah, I fully agree. I fully agree with Janet. The only one additional thing I want to add was, I think bite size, fail small is important. Another important factor is about scale out, right? When we prove the pilot is working, and we need to make an action plan to scale it out to the broader scope or pilots, right? To further test it, because sometimes when we build the small bite-sized project, it may not disclose all the potential problem, but as we scale to the different region, different organization, the resistance would surface from there. So I think having a step-by-step action plan is truly critical to make changes happen.
Absolutely. Yeah, those are very helpful advice. Those bite-size steps and bite-size success. That's actually break things into small pieces and then show the incremental gains you had. And then what about, once you made the change, let's say, let's push through that you got a buy-ins and the employees and your team members were supportive of your action. And, through a couple of weeks, through a couple of months, we got to where we wanted to be. Now, how do we evaluate the success of the changes we made? And also, how do we ensure it's not going to be reverted back to the pre-change condition over time? Because people have resistance, kind of even though not explicitly, but internally, they might say, they might feel like, the old process is much easier. Why we're doing this? So now the work is being done, the change has been made. How do we convince them to stick up to the new change and then not have the old momentum or inertia kind of drive you backwards?
Yeah, I think that is a good question. So I think one important thing as part of the stacking the deck is to build the those metrics and the KPI kind of to measure where we are in terms of changes, and some measure need to carry forward. It's not just one-time deal, and we need to keep measure how how effective the changes are, and the roles need to be become a part of, I would say, because of the new working environment. So that is one thing. Another thing was I think that leadership, a lot of organization may change the leader under, say, every 2 or 3 years. And the continuation of the leadership or the new leadership's buy-in in those changes are truly critical, because we observe a lot of organization kind of, making the changes, making quite the fundamental changes with a new boss on board, right? So those kind of stuff, I think other leadership need to be really keep an eye on about, what kind of changes they, it's something that is a part of the culture of the organization, and they need to be, we kind of need to embrace the changes and continue with the certain changes, even with the different leaders in charge. Jenna,
yeah, I think having the right group of people to believe in the idea is the first step. Like you can't be the only person believing in the idea and have people just implement it. You need to have an army of people that believe in the idea who will actually enforce it as we grow. And one example I have is within our company, we roll out geographic information system, GIS, and we want our field employees to be just recording the latitude and longitude when they're on the site. Instead of using a notebook to write down the location address, just use the app, press a button, and record the lat long. It seems really straightforward, and we have a good pilot. It just never takes traction. And what I realized that the pilot is actually pushed by engineers in the office, not people in the field. So as we start to engage the field personnel who actually start to believe in the idea that it will save time, they use the application, it does save them time, they just spread the news, and we were able to implement it in 3 months. It took us a whole year to do the pilot, and then when it happened, we engaged the right group. It just is effortless. So sometimes it's trying different groups too, but you do need to scale your idea. Make sure the right group of people believe in it and is able to help scale it for you.
All right, thank you so much. That's also a very good point too. I think just finding the right audience. Not every group will receive the same message the same way. So finding your allies, finding the right people that we can work with the early wing, essentially. Okay, and the next batch of questions we have are related to special time. We're working from home. This is unprecedented COVID-19, and everyone's working remotely, right? So now during this time, I think there's going to be a lot of challenges, let alone making changes, right? So it's already difficult to just working day to day, make things moving forward because you don't see each other. Now also driving this organizational change, and then try to get buy-in and try to work with people that have resistance all through a Zoom meeting. Now that could be a little challenging too. So what are some of those challenges you guys faced, and also how did you resolve these when driving the change and also taking the lead on initiatives?
Yeah, remote doesn't make it easier, for sure. I think, again, change is difficult enough, and remote doesn't make it easier. It requires me to invest more time with building personal relationship. And I'm talking about a call that is not related to the change or work. Like purposely make those touch points with your team, and really make them understand you care about them and that you're someone that they can trust, that will either help them with their career, help them to be successful. And it's those little moments that helps you with implementing change during this difficult time. And I would say, like, we're on a lot of web meetings. For me, myself, having camera on is helpful. For my meetings, I do ask, if it's not like a huge meeting like this one, if it's a meeting with less than 10 people, I do request people to turn on their camera. It helps people connect. The change won't happen via an email, Jing, right? It won't happen when we're just a phone call. It's all those touch points. You need to touch people's heart. So yeah, that's what I want to say to address this question. Jing?
Yeah, sure. I can add a little bit more. Definitely turn on the camera does make a major difference, right? That is FaceTime. Essentially, we can see everyone's, facial, the emotion. That is a good way to connect with people. Another thing I want to say is, to connect with our team member in the teleworking environment, right? We need to be touch-based not only on the work basis, but also on the personal basis. Like recently, when I have a talk with one of my software engineer, he seems to be very frustrated with a certain organizational change that is coming in the recent quarter. But when I have a more in-depth talk with him, actually I found out his stress level came from his family as well, because his wife worked in the hospital and for the COVID patient. And to avoid her family from get impacted by the virus, got exposed to virus, she kind of quarantine herself from her family member. So essentially, the employee got a kind of double pressure. One is from project, another one is from their family, the isolation. Okay? So he's kind of alone for half a year. It's a really, really stressful situation for everyone. Yeah.
Okay, that's I think that's kind of related to the next question is on the maybe team buildings and nurturing relationship. I think both of you touched on that a little bit. I guess also just from my perspective, maybe just one more thing to add is I think also having a meeting outside of meeting can help too. So when you try to everything's you're doing through Zoom, which is fine, but it doesn't have to be just one meeting, right? There's people that you want to gather support, the people you want to really make a convincing case, maybe have a separate meeting, separate Zoom discussion, just one-on-one FaceTime, turn on the camera, and then really try to make your case there and try to get some buy-in. That can also be really helpful. And before I get to the Zoom question, or I guess the team building, I do have a question about, when sometimes you don't have, you're dealing with a change that are enforced upon you, right? So you are the recipient of the change as opposed to the person that's making the change. So for example, reorg, right? There could be some groups that's kind of all of a sudden, the entire group gets grouped into a different organizations. There might be leadership change, and sometimes it could be even a business unit that gets sold off to a different business unit, right, or to a different company even. So now, how do you deal with that? How do you embrace those changes and also coming on top?
Yes, Daniel, I will be glad to share my personal experience here, because I'm working in the energy vertical right now. This year was extremely dynamic, right, for the industry and for the company. And one of our product line, that is a multi-billion revenue product line, was sold to another company, and that changes was enforced on top of us. And actually, that product line was one of my main sponsor of the project. So, and I wasn't part of leadership of that M&A cases. I'm more like outsider. I'm only aware of those public information. So what I did for that was I for all the public information I can find, I will openly share with my team member. And I even hosted a roundtable with the different project teams to share with them, my understanding of those public information. What does that mean for us? What is the best case? What could be the worst case, right? So I felt in the crisis time, especially the reorg because of the crisis, the openness and visibility are really, really critical. And actually, it's a moment to build some, I would say, emotional connection with the people, because everyone is suffering from all the uncertainties, right? It's a time to share it's kind of shared experience with the team members. And of course, for those changes, we need to, I keep a very close eye about what is going on, and if I can influence in any way, I will step out, try to do so.
Yeah. So for my company, we don't really have we have reorganization every year with shuffling people around. It's just part of the change that we impose on ourselves every year. So people are used to those kind of organizational change. We haven't been, selling business, but we have been acquiring businesses. And I think it's about your attitude to new team members that join your team as a different company, or a reorg where you are working with a new department. Your attitude of, I can learn something from them. When you carry that kind of mentality, you come across as a very positive person. And it's okay to share your fear. It's okay to say, I'm actually a bit worried because now that we're combined, I want to understand how the work is being distributed. My team is worried, including myself, about not having enough work and that we'll be laid off. How can we work this out so everybody will be able to stay productive and not use the time to worry about these concerns? And again, be positive. Combining organization is a good thing for an overall company. Usually it means that they can achieve higher efficiency. But that also means that people need to be cross-trained in different disciplines to be effective and productive. So instead of being worried, it's important to communicate and be that positive communicator rather than a person that is negative about change. Because we know how those people are coming across when we want to lead a change.
So I think this is kind of wraps up the majority of my questions. I do have some time. I think I want to open up to the audience. I see 2 questions right now on the screen. So you can turn around. I have a different computer shows the chat message. So basically, I think this is coming from Megan. So Megan, do you want to come up and maybe elaborate your question a little bit for the 2 speakers? I think I can try to read your message too, but might be better to come from you directly.
Sure, I can talk. Firstly, thank you so much for sharing your experience. I learned so much from you. And so our organization is trying to really drive a data-driven process and culture, of course, for decision-making. And therefore, we involved a proof of concept for a third-party vendor, which will help with prediction and will basically, I'm at a hospital, so that will provide the predicted number of patient discharges or patient admissions so that we can plan ahead for how a patient placement or how we use our bed. The problem is people are in that process. Normally in the past 10 years, 20 years, they've been using their experience to predict that number. And now they feel like, okay, how can I know your prediction is accurate? That's one question. And then we show them, yeah, see, the accuracy is pretty good. We have a pretty good accuracy rate here. And then they said, yeah, okay, but then it takes us more time to check for the data and then to use the data to make the decision. So basically, we just hit the wall here, and at the same time, the leadership doesn't want to make a call saying you have to do this. So no one is willing to do that. So from the leadership, we are in short of that commitment, even from the leadership and from the frontline staff, and they don't have the trust and they are not willing to use this tool. So based on this situation, what's your suggestion for us? Should we firstly pursue the leadership and then push, or should we just come back and say, okay, this proof of concept will be a failure and then we will try later?
That's
Megan,
I can, Janet, you want to take a question?
Yeah, because I feel your pain, Megan. I'm currently also leading a more data-driven decision process within the company, and I understand what you're talking about. I was able to make some headway after a lot of failure, and the experience that you described is exactly the same experience I have. I need to face a group where when I present the data, they are actually drilling the data and say, well, this data point doesn't quite fit and that doesn't fit. And when you take all those out, then it would be wrong. And that's why we default to our gut feeling. So it's important to kind of convey the limits of your data-driven solution ahead of time. So to set the expectation. And then find a solution, find a problem that would actually make your team shine. So instead of looking at financial data for me, we actually move away and we actually use human resource data to become our second use case. Because HR is trying to prove that we have a very diverse and inclusive culture. So what we did is we just look at the data and on just pay and gender and just distribution and compare with industry norms. And we use that data to share with them, hey, there is uncertainty within this data, is potentially flawed because of these input, but the data is actually showing and help back you up that we are a very inclusive and diverse workplace. Now I get buy-in from HR all of a sudden, and then when they are in these team leadership meeting, they are able to share how useful the data is with the finance team, and I'm starting to get more buy-in from the finance team. Another thing I did is I actually take the most senior person in the finance department who doesn't believe in data, interestingly, to help us. And we tell them, yes, the data could be flawed. We need a subject matter expert to help us render an opinion on whether the prediction is correct or not. We need your help. After we brought her on, we actually get a lot of her buy-in within a short time. And we presented to leadership again next month. Hopefully we'll have more progress. I hear your pain. And remember, this kind of change is difficult. You will hit a lot of walls, but you need to find ways to get around your wall. That's where you're here. And Jin, you can share your comments too.
Yeah, I just want to add on. This is really very interesting problem because I'm working in the energy vertical. We are dealing with a lot of incumbent who has like 10 decades of experience with certain thing, and they truly believe their human estimation or expertise is priceless, right? That cannot be replaced by anything else, because they feel the threat of the new project. So one thing I would recommend is, given the fact you got a proof of concept was funded, so you must have a buy-in from certain stakeholder, right? Because if not, they will not commit money to do so. I would say you must have some executive or senior managers supporting that. I think you need to engage them to see how to earn more commitment from the leadership. I think commitment from leadership was critical because a lot of times when we face such a resistance from the user, they could align certain objective to make it more attractive for the people to try out the proof of concept. So that's one thing. Another thing is that for proof of concept, you may consider to change the audience. I don't know whether they chose who you master pilot with upfront, because a lot of time, probably you want to choose the ambassador, your ambassador to be part of a proof of concept rather than try to, work with the toughest one, right? Because for me, we try out some automation project, and the most experienced one never bought in. They felt it's a threat. But on the other hand, the junior person actually is much more open for the data approach or whatever, the new approach. So I felt you can engage both directions to try to break through the kind of current stalemate situation.
That's great suggestions. Thank you both, and you guys are so smart. Not really just going forward, really try to find a way around to find the I would say maybe the early adopter or people who are more acceptant to really help with the situation. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. I will definitely try that.
Absolutely. Yeah, great answer to those questions, Jing and Janet. I think just one thing to maybe add on to it is, I think it's also kind of inspired me to when I had the global business week with in Sweden. I think when one of the head of AI at H&M mentioned, when we have those fancy data models, when we have those fancy predictions, and prediction engines, our job is not to take our client's job away, right? So there's also in-house, support as well, try to make prediction on the trend, on fashion, and all those things. But the goal is to help them do their job better, right? So coming in with that mentality, coming in with, hey, we're not threatening you, we're working with you. Maybe our model is not perfect. Maybe we can take input from you, so that make you feel like our model is your model. Our model is a result of your ideas, and then that will also bring you some success there. So really want to pivot the idea of, hey, let's replace this process with this process. It's really to say, hey, let's augment your process with the additional tool that can help you make better decisions. And maybe whatever number I provided, that's not how you make your decisions, but it's an additional reference point, additional data points that you can reference. You're still free to come up with your own intuition, not based on the number I provided, right? That's probably additional thing that can help out a little bit. And the other thing I completely agree with Jing, find your allies within that group. We say that's a very vague term. That's a lot of people, right? So can you find people that are a little bit more acceptable to new ideas? Can you find people like Jing mentioned, younger junior members in the team that are open to new things that can make their life easier, right? That's definitely find your ally. That's also a critical component of driving those organizational change.
Yeah, great point. I definitely can see that when the prediction can confirm their estimation, they are happy. And when it's against them, they feel like, oh no, that's not correct. So yeah, you're right. Maybe find the use cases that can help, can confirm first, and then really involve them first to earn their trust or confidence. Then we can move longer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you for all of them.
And the next question from San Sulio, I think I know who that is. So do you want to come up and then just talk about your questions as opposed to me reading out your questions? I think that might be better this way.
Sure, of course. Yeah, I just want to echo what Megan just mentioned. Thank you so much, Janet, Jing, and Daniel. A lot of great insight that I guess for all the other audience, we all learn a lot. Thank you so much. So what I want to talk here is like in my organization, we are also trying to do some kind of either we call it innovation or this kind of revolution to be more data driven and then use more data science. And then other than just find someone on my team who's open to do the change, or like my direct manager, I also need to work with a lot of business partners. So we talk about like how to try to bring people on board if they have like a similar vision, or as Daniel mentioned, we can tell them that we're actually helping you to do so. However, there's a possibility that people have different personality, right? They could think this as a challenge or potential risk to them, or there's potential conflict of interest. Let's say if everything is all made automated, then I might lose my job in the future, right? Or do tell me how to do my job. Right, this kind of sword could give me a lot of resistance for this revolution. So that is my first question. So for this kind of a conflict of interest with business partners, not on my team but other teams. So and also I don't have direct influence to them, right? So what should be the right way to solve that? Yeah, thank you so much.
Okay, yeah, I think I can make a shot. Probably not complete answer your question, but I would be glad to share my perspective. Because in our organization, we also make the shift from those physical modeling to a more data-driven approach. And the physical modeling is kind of model the whole, the piece with all the physics and formula behind the thing, and the data-driven is more like a big data approach. So apparently not everyone would believe in the new approach, right? Because when you say business partner, for me, actually is not just one person. Again, data-driven approach, I'm pretty sure a lot of, business partner, let me put it this way, I will separate business partner into two categories. One category would be the like product manager or like the sponsor of the project. Okay, if they sponsor project, they must buy in, if not, they will not pay money out of pocket to do those projects, right? And then there are certain partner, they could be the user, right? Because in the B2B environment, normally decision maker and end user are separated. So for the end user, they may push back of the new approach because they felt the threat from this new approach, right? It could happen, but I think it's really need to boil down about what exactly conflict of interest would be. Is that be their job really concerned about job security? Or it's about, just don't believe in their value. All those are very different because we do, like, for example, some of my project, we would reduce the headcount for certain operation from like 3 to 2. Okay, one person will lose a job. But it really depends on how the whole change would be implemented in that level, because a lot of time is more about the restructure the working force to remove the people from that position. Doesn't mean the person doesn't have a job, right? Actually that person probably do other job more related with data or something else. So that is one possibility. Or they are skeptical about your method. They felt it's flawed, then that is very different. If they felt the old method is flawed, probably need to really listen to understand under what situation it may not work. Right? So I would say, just deal with each team, each partner individually, and truly understand where does the concern come from, and tackle them, I would say, tackle them in separately. That is my, a few cents.
Yeah, I think now that you know who is resisting these change, and the change is indeed important for the organization, it's important for you to explore what the threat is, what they're concerned about, what they're worried about. It sounds like they're worried about losing their job. And recently, we have been investing in automated testing machines in the construction field, and our field team feels extremely threatened. They think, oh my God, we are investing in autonomous testing vehicles and machines. My job is going away in the next 10 years, and we get a lot of resistance. But as we understand where they're coming from, we explain to them, no, we actually would be able to serve 10 more projects, which is you managing these machines, and you won't be exposing yourself to the danger of the construction site, and you'll actually be earning more. You can address the concerns without knowing what the concerns are. And I think assumption is not a good way. Having an open dialogue and listening to them, ask them specific questions about, I know you have been giving me some comments on this change, and I want to really hear your concerns because I want to make sure the change incorporate your concerns. And if there are things that we need to change, we are also happy to make those change. Let them voice it out. That's one way.
Okay, from my perspective, I think this also, happens day to day, all the time when we have a new process, a new method, but there's always going to be resistance coming from some certain group because they feel threatened, right? And then sometimes there's no reconciliations because you are taking their job away, right? You are making a process a little better so that some of the human factor can be taken out and it will be based on more of a predictive method. So if that's inevitable, if that's what you're dealing with, now you got to be very careful, right? So first of all, if you truly believe that this change is still worth having, then go for it, go push for it. Now, the other problem side of the spectrum is if you don't think this is worth the fight, now also not every change has something, you had to push forward to it. So there are going to be things where you have the gaming, there's also reality where if you think there's going to be a fierce resistance, if it's going to be taking people's jobs away, and if you don't strongly believe in your own idea, maybe not every battle is worth fighting for. So always pick your battle smartly, right? If you think this is a great value, can do wonders to your organization, and it creates huge opportunity in the long term, then go ahead and do it. But just but watch out what you're fighting for, though. Like make sure you prioritize your project, prioritize your battles accordingly to make sure you go with the biggest win and lowest resistance first, right? And then don't just go with the I guess the one with the highest resistance. And then if you do happen to be inevitable that you want to do this, and this is something you truly believe in, and it will definitely impact the other departments, and there's no reconciliations. Now the only option you really have here is you really pivot this to the executive, right? People are way above their pay grade. People who are taking value or not taking sides on which department they prefer, they want to make friends with, but people who are responsible for those board meetings, people who are responsible for the results of those 10K, 10Q, of those, we have to disclose the financial results to Wall Street. So these are the people who will take the best interest in the company's performance, not individual departments' interests, right? So find your ally. Now that's a little challenging thing to do. I don't know if you have one-on-one or skip level one-on-one with the executive team, but those are things that you can also explore if that's something you truly believe in. Just be really careful though. That's a risky battle. It's also not a frictionless path to that method. But if you truly believe in this project where you can deliver value in the long term for the organization, then by all means go ahead and do it. And then reach out to the executive team, reach out to gather support from the upper management.
Yeah, and I would say this is your career. It's long term. Remember the other parties, whether they're partners, whatever their fears are, they're human beings. And like Daniel said, if the change is significant enough where they will indeed be losing their job, be empathetic. Before you even break the news or leadership break the news to them, help these groups share their concerns with leadership. And make sure there is a backup plan for them, whether it's a great compensation package or a referral to a different role within your company. It's important because if you fail those people, it erodes your reputation. And even you become the CEO 10 years later, those people remember what you did to them. And again, we touch on how do you make people feel. So even in faced with resistance, make sure you have humanity and understand we're all human beings. We have fears and concerns, and think long term.
Yeah. Another thing I want to add is, if really organization is embracing such a bold change, probably the overall incentive mechanism need to be restructured in a way to embrace the change as well. I just refer to like Charles Schwab, the brokers, they give the zero commission fee. What does that mean? It means a lot for the people who really earn the revenue or earn their bonus from their day-to-day transaction, right? Essentially, that portion of people would be transitioned to the different job because every customer are able to transit on their own with a zero fee. And normally for such a kind of bold changes, a lot of companies actually even do a different incentive mechanism to ensure the organization that got impacted by the changes would be subsidized in a certain way or has a transition period to move towards the new direction. Because no matter what we're doing, it's really for the long-term goal for the company, right? Mid-term or long-term. So all roles, with all those shared goal or shared vision in mind, and there are some pain suffered by the certain organization that need to be, I would say emphasized, right? Everyone need to show the empathy to that, and they need to be, I think, helped to some extent to transit to the new role, right? If really the leadership does care to make it succeed, and this is very important, be part of the action plan.
Yeah, so
Okay.
I think just maybe just the final notes to this is just make sure to pick your battle wisely. I think already mentioned that, but also it's important to have a situational awareness. Be able to have your essay, be able to identify what might be the risk. How is this person's relationship with the upper management too, right? That you want to kind of see through the back. Just making sure if you want to go for this battle, now there's going to be far back, right? There's going to be some kind of a risk too. So if you push too hard, if this person have a very tight relationship with upper management, and maybe there are going to be things that's going to be, there are going to be factions within the organization that you are not fully aware of, then there's a risky move. So think it through. Is it something that you really want worth fighting for? Is it something that you want to? What is the risk involved in going for that battle? And also just always pick your battle wisely. That's my probably 2 cents.
Yeah, I cannot agree more.
Okay.
That's very right.
Thank you so much. I do think this is very helpful. Thank you.
Okay.
So my next question, or the last question is, let's assume that my direct manager is supporting me. What do I expect from him or her? So how do you define if your manager is supporting you? What should I ask for, or how do I know that he or she is supporting me actually? Thank you.
I think it depends on what do you ask them to support you. I have staff that comes to me and asks if I support them, and I said, yes, I do. And then 2 months later, they come to me like, I don't feel supported. And it's like, so tell me what I need to do to support you. Then they start to let me know exactly what the items are and the actionable items. So it's helpful to also set some expectation for your supervisor. Sounds like he or she is already supporting you. Say, hey, I do want to present in this next board meeting. Would you be able to let me speak for 5 minutes? And here are the slides. I want to schedule a meeting with you to go over the slides. And I need your coach on this to make me successful. Like provide actionable items that your manager can actually support you on.
Yeah, exactly. I think the support means, you want to get some concrete help or action taken from your manager, right? If he or she really follow very closely and make it happen, definitely the person is backing off you, right? You're on the same boat.
All right. I think, yes, thanks for answering those questions. I think that's all the questions we have from the audience. So just lastly, before we wrap it up, here's our information with WeChat, with Telegram, with LinkedIn groups. We also have Instagram and also email address and a couple Facebook group and Facebook pages as well. So feel free to join any of these and also pay attention to our next event. Again, I want to take this precious time and also appreciate Janet and Jing for participating. They're super busy professional as well. And glad to see you two classmates. And also for the audience, please, maybe look out for our next event. Hopefully the next one we're hoping for is a storytelling with slides. So telling the story with the slideshow, right? How do you make your PowerPoint a little bit more powerful? How to tell a story, how to make a convincing case, doing presentations, doing PowerPoints. So that's, I think, one of the topics, and also we have some other topics on communication and such. So again, great discussion, and really appreciate the audience and your time for joining us on a Saturday afternoon, where most people are probably spending time with family and friends usually around this time. So I definitely don't want to take it too long for you guys to be with us. So again, thank you all, and then we'll see you some other time.
Thank you, Daniel, for having me here. It's my great pleasure.
All right. All right. Have a good one.
Thanks for having me too.
Yep. All right. Have a good weekend, guys.
All right. Well, good to see both of you. Bye.
Bye.